Hey everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and I'd like to do another beginner guide for Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. If you're interested, I have a melee guide and a caster guide for 2020 here. This time though, I want to go with a ranger build, kind of a bow shooter sniper type class, and I'm going to do it in a perhaps unconventional way. There's lots of ranged type characters that you can build if you want to use bows, and centaur is extremely strong, and many other classes or species have reasonable aptitudes. You could make a halfling with a sling if you wanted, but I'd like to show you one that I found to be fun and actually powerful once you got it off the ground, and that is the Barachi. If you're interested, I have a separate video series that chronicles a Barachi getting a 15 rune victory if you want to watch from the very beginning of the game all the way through extended and getting all of the runes in the game and escaping with the orb. With this Barachi, that is available for you. But here we're going to start, and if you're not sure or you've never heard of the Barachi, it's a newer species that was added to the game, and it's like a frog person. It's an amphibious humanoid who rebelled against the gods. I mean, which seems like something you'd do if you were a frog person. They're fast learners and can hop long distances, but are otherwise slow and easily seen. So the thing about the Barachi is they can jump. You know, they're a frog. So you can use the ability to jump away to take advantage of a bow and shoot from range more. The disadvantage of a Barachi is, as it says, they are slow. So that means that they don't move quickly, so enemies can get on them faster and you can't run away as easily. Also, when it says they're easily seen, what that means is that enemies from your line of sight is bigger with this character, basically. So that means enemies from further away can actually see you as you can see them. So it's a double-edged sword. But that is actually a good thing if you have a bow and can shoot at max range. So we're going to pick Barachi, and I'm going to go with a hunter build. Okay, so this is a Barachi hunter, which the reason I'm going hunter as the background with this beginner guide to Barachi hunter or ranger is so we start with the bow. We don't want to pick, you know, a different class and not have a bow right away. This gives us a opportunity to begin with a bow. And in my longer series, I actually started with a hand crossbow so that I could use a shield. But later in the game, if you're a ranged character, you're going to be using a bigger crossbow or a bigger bow, and so a shield isn't really something that you will need. Although it does help you early for some survivability, but for this playthrough, I want to use a bow because arrows are easier to get, and longbows are arguably they're arguably the best weapon in the game. People debate that on Reddit, if longbows are just, you know, the most damage output you can get for a weapon. Okay, so here we are, and we are Barachi. Now, with this beginner guide, I do want to say that I'm not going to explain all of the protocol for how to play the game. I'm going to assume that you understand basic keyboard inputs, how to move around, but I will announce certain aspects of the game in terms of key commands that you might not be familiar with that are specific to this game, and I will do that one time so that you're familiar with it if you haven't played very much in the game. So the first thing you want to do is push M, which opens up your skill panel. From here, you want to push, you can see down here at the bottom, it gives you all these options. And we want to push the slash key it's actually the /, and you want to change the skills from being automatically trained to manually trained, and we're going to actually focus on bows and only bows at the beginning. We're going to turn off stealth, fighting, and dodging, and the way that you do that is each skill corresponds to a letter on the keyboard. And for example, dodging corresponds to G, and it has this plus sign, which means you're training it at the regular rate, and it's white. But if I push G again, it goes to the asterisk, which means you are focus training it. So you can see actually 2/3 of my experience is going here, and then the other third is going to bows because I'm focusing dodging. But then if you push it G again, it will turn dodging gray, and then all of our experience now that we're getting is going to bows, and we want to level up bows so that we can be more accurate and do more damage, because that's the most important thing to us at the beginning. I will say another point about the Barachi that we'll get into a little bit later is that what makes them great, in my opinion, is that they have very, very good aptitudes. You can see like they're good at fighting, they're good at short blades, unarmed combat, armor, dodging, and they don't really have that many aptitudes that they're not good at. Even, bows, they don't have a positive aptitude, but they have a 0, which is fine. No minus, no, bonus, just in the middle. And so this allows them to be very, very versatile characters. So what we want to do is move around the dungeon. Now, to do that, I'm just pushing the O key for auto explore. You may use the arrow keys to move around when you want to do fine-tuned moving, or in an example like this where we see an enemy on the screen, and the auto explore will not let you use it if there are enemies on the screen. So once you find an enemy, auto explore turns off, and you need to move around manually using the arrow keys or the number pad, or however you want to move. Now, this hobgoblin, you can see his name is in gray, and the color of the text of the enemy over here on the right of the screen, this field will show you all of the visible enemies on the screen, and it's only listing the hobgoblin right now because he's the only enemy. And the color of the name of the enemy in this field gives you an indication of the threat level of the enemy. Now, it's not always 100% accurate as to how hard that enemy is going to be for you, but it's a good overall guide. It's basically their hit dice against your character's experience level, and it goes from being like dark gray, which is a complete joke to you, to this lighter gray, which is harder. And then you get into yellow, which is like an equal challenge, and then you can get into light red, which is very hard, or just hard, I suppose, and then dark red, which is like extremely difficult. So this enemy is something we can take, and luckily the Z's on it mean that it's sleeping. In the lower left of the screen, you'll see a text box that is giving us information about the dungeon, okay? So we have found a ruby potion, which actually we picked up. When you are auto-exploring, many items will be automatically picked up as long as there's not an enemy on the screen. And so we saw a ruby potion and we picked up the ruby potion. I will talk about potions a little bit later, but generally it is a terrible idea in this game, unless it is an absolute emergency and you're going to die, to drink potions without identifying them first, because you don't know what they are, and many of the potions are poisonous or negative, and you don't want to drink them. So I'm not going to mess with this potion until I can identify it. Now, then the text screen tells us that a hobgoblin comes into view, and it's red because it's an enemy, and it's just kind of like color coding the text over here to give you an indication of what you see. Blue is an item that's magical, unidentified, and here's the enemy. Now, if you want to get a closer look at the enemy, you could push the X key, and it brings up like the examine interface. And now you can move with the arrow keys this box that has the 4 yellow corners, and you can move it around, and you can select the tile that has the enemy on it, and it says here is a hobgoblin, and then in parentheses it will give it status, and it says it's sleeping. If you want more information, you can push V, and then it brings up the enemy's info card. This tells you how many hit points it has approximately, if it has good armor class, if it has good evasion, and its threat level, and how much damage it can do to you. Also, there's like flavor text if you'd like, and then if you push exclamation point, the game gives you a funny or interesting cultural quote about the enemy type. All right. Notice that it says its evasion is in parentheses here, and it has 2 pips. The more pips for the armor class, the evasion, or the magic resistance, the stronger that enemy is at that. And he's actually pretty... he has more evade than he does armor class, but this evasion is in parentheses because he has no evade right now because he's sleeping, so he can't dodge anything. So what we want to do is fire at this guy. Now, if you are using a bow or a ranged weapon in this game, you can actually use... there's a couple of ways you can fight. One is to push the F key. I'm sorry. You have to push escape to get out of the examine window. Now push the F key, and it will automatically like target this hobgoblin because he's the only enemy on the screen. And it will show you the path that my projectile is going to take in the yellow squares. And then if we push F again, we would actually fire our bow on this hobgoblin. Now, we have a +1 short bow. In the upper right, you can see the character information screen, the kind of quick reference for your character. Here's my hit points. I have 1 magic point. Here are my stats. I have an armor class of 3, an evasion of 12, a shield of 0 because I don't have a shield. I'm experience level 1, and I'm 0% of the way to the next level. I am on dungeon 1. I'm not making any noise. I have a +1 short bow, and I have 20 arrows in my quiver. So, that's one way to shoot. Another way to shoot, if you only have 1 enemy on the screen and you're not worried about precision, you can push the tab key to do auto attack. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to push tab, and we're going to fire an arrow. And you see it kind of streak across the screen, and it says you shoot an arrow. The arrow hits the hobgoblin but does no damage, and that's unfortunate. That means that we actually did hit it, but because our bow isn't super strong, he basically absorbed the damage with his armor. So we need to shoot him again. And I'm just going to push tab again, and this time we rolled a higher damage roll than his armor roll. One way to think about this is my armor class is 3. So if an enemy is doing incoming damage to me, and I can mitigate that incoming damage with armor class, I actually roll a die, and it ranges from 0 to 3. And then the enemy rolls a die to hit. And if he hits, and he's going through armor class with the damage he's doing, then he rolls his attack damage and adds all of his modifiers, and then we subtract his attack damage from my armor class to see if it actually does damage. If he rolled like a 2 and I rolled a 3, well, then he doesn't hurt me. But if he rolled a 5 and I rolled a 3, then 5 minus 3 means I would take 2 damage. So that's there's more to it than that, but that's just kind of a rough way to understand how the calculations work for dealing and receiving damage through armor class. All right, so I'm going to push O, and I auto-explore, and part of the auto-explore is to pick up my arrow. If an item is to be picked up with auto-explore, you will see a green box around that item, meaning if there's no enemy on the screen to interrupt my auto-explore, I'm going to go over there and pick that up. Now, you can see my footprints traveling behind me that show the path that I took, and now we see a giant cockroach. Auto-explore stops because we see a new enemy, and it is aware of us. It's not sleeping, so I'm just going to push tab and shoot it, and we hit it. Let me show you something, just to give you an idea of our weapon. If I push Shift 5, it brings up my character card in a more detailed way that actually shows my resistances, which you can see here. The little R means resist, so this is like resist fire, for example, resist cold, magic resistance, stealth, how much hit points or magic points I'm regenerating per turn. Turns are indicated up here with the time window. Can I see invisible? Do I have gourmand, which means I can just eat whenever I want to, even if I'm full? Do I have faith, which means the gods like me more? Do I have spirit, which means I would absorb damage first with my magic points? Or I guess it's equally distributed between magic points and health. And am I reflecting incoming projectiles? And do I have harm, which means I deal more damage, but I take more damage. And then over here, it shows you my inventory. And you can see I have a short bow and leather armor, and that's it. Shield currently unavailable means I'm using a short bow, which is a two-handed weapon, so I cannot use a shield with it. It also tells you that I'm slow, just as a racial modifier. And then my abilities or attributes are that I have plus line of sight, which means I see further. I swim through water. I'm slow 1, and I have strong legs 1, which gives me the jumping ability. This shows you how much time it takes me to move around, because moving is the last action I took. Actually, wait, I take that back. Firing my bow was the last action I took, which takes 1.1 turns, and moving takes 1.2 turns. Most enemies move at 1.0 turns, so that's hence I'm slow. It takes me longer to move. All right. I'm going to just move over here, and I'm going to pick up my arrow. You can see that there's a green box around the corpse of the giant cockroach, because I can actually push C to butcher the corpse, and then I get a chunk of flesh, which I can eat if I get hungry. Now, I actually have modified my game's RC file to auto butcher, so that when I'm auto exploring, if there's a corpse, I just will automatically step on it and chop it up and save it for later. I might make a separate video on how to modify your RC, but for now, if you don't have that done, you just have to step over the body and push C to butcher it so that you can save the meat until it rots if you want to eat it. All right, here's a bat, and it's sleeping, so I'll just push tab, and we hit it. Oh, right. The reason I pushed shift 5 was so that I could show you my weapon. I'm actually going to push I for inventory, and this brings up a better way to look at what you're holding. And I'm going to push A on my short bow and show you that its base accuracy is +2 and its base damage is 9. So that means it's pretty damaging. It's 9, but it's not super strong. It is very accurate, though. +2 accuracy is good, and then because it's a +1 short bow, it actually gives me +1 accuracy and +1 damage because of the enchantment bonus. So I'm hitting very reliably. That's why I'm training my bow skill to give a bonus to accuracy, and then the bow itself is +1, and then a short bow weapon class gets a +2 accuracy bonus. So this is why I'm hitting things. I'm pretty accurate. Now, you can see base attack delay is 1.3, which means if I had no training, it would take 1.3 turns to fire this. However, you improve this by leveling this up your skill with bows. And so you can get it all the way down to 0.6 if you're level 14 with bow skill. Now, my skill is 4.2. And it's telling me that, if I want to get it up to 14 skill to drop the minimum delay for the weapon to 0.6, it's going to take me about 8.5 experience levels training it as I am. But right now, my skill in bows already makes it so I'm shooting at 1.2 instead of 1.3, so it's faster. All right, I'm going to look around. Oh, cockroach. Let's just shoot him, and we're missing, and then we finally hit. And here's a rat, and I'm going to shoot him, and we got him. Shooting is not very loud, so I can do this pretty indiscriminately, but I do want to keep an eye on my arrows. I have 13, which is plenty, and then you can also see there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 lying around, so really I have 17. There's a chance that when you're firing an arrow that it will break, or get lost, and your stack will slowly start to deplete, which is what you're really hoping to do, is find some arrows somewhere. Arrows are generally easier to find than crossbow bolts, so that's an advantage that we have. And I just hit experience level 2. I'm a Barachi. We get experience very rapidly, and so that's why I'm already level 2, even though I've only killed a handful of enemies. And that's very good. That's a great thing about the Barachi, is that we get levels quickly, and that means that we get more health, you know? We get all the bonuses of raising up experience levels. So now, instead of having 17 health, we now have 23 health, and instead of 1 magic point, we have 2. So this is a very nice thing. And at level 3, we're going to get to improve our stats. So fast experience, good skill aptitudes, all of these things make the Barachi very strong. You just have to plan for the fact that you move slowly. So if you need to get away from an enemy, what you can do is push A for the ability screen, and then it says do what? Well, we only have one ability, which is to hop. All right, and so we can push F and hop, and then it brings up this screen, and it shows us how far we can target. We can only hop 4 tiles away, or we can only aim to hop 4 tiles away. What this means is that I would attempt to hop to the north, and this is my target square, but any of these yellow squares around it are potential destinations for my hop. Hopping is not 100% accurate. It's not a controlled blink. It would be too powerful if it were. So you can only sort of guide your hop, but you can finesse this, and it's still extremely powerful. So let me show you. I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to push enter to finish this, and you can see that instead of jumping where I wanted, I actually jumped a little bit shorter, but I still moved all the way over here in one action. So that only took 1.0 turns, moving faster than my actual move, and I covered 1, 2, 3 squares. So that is an example of a leap. Now, after you leap, you get this debuff on your character below your quick reference that says minus hop in yellow, which means like I cannot hop right now. My legs are tired. They're waiting. And so I can just walk around, or if I'd like, I can just push the 5 key and wait, and then it'll wait until certain things happen, which will trigger the end of waiting, like getting your magic points back or your health back, but we were at full, or losing a debuff, like for example minus hop. Now it says you're ready to hop once more, and we can jump if we want to. Alright, so now we know how to leap, and it's our job to get our arrows back, but let's just... Oh, okay. So I did a tab shot there, but it looks like we've uncovered a bunch of enemies. And here's something you need to be careful of with auto-targeting. Auto-targeting, if I were to tab fire right now, is going to remember that giant cockroach, and I actually want to... and you can see that by pushing F, and it'll show you by defaulting to your auto-target who you've got selected. And I actually want to switch up and start firing at this hobgoblin here because he's close to me. And we'll take a few shots at him. We got him. And then let's just shoot at the cockroach. I don't care about the bat at all right now. But what I am worried about is this eventuality, which is that now I have no weapon because I have no arrows left. And so I'm going to need to switch to this short sword by pushing W to change which weapon you're wielding. And it does take time to switch weapons. So the bat got to hit me. It takes half of a turn, 0.5 of a turn to change weapons, but I need to do it so I can kill this cockroach. And I'm just going to swing at the cockroach until I eventually kill him. And then we're going to try to kill this bat with this as well. We just really need one hit to land. There we go. And then I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to rest. And then I'm going to have Auto Explorer begin picking up all of my arrows. As soon as I get arrows that I can shoot, I'm going to push W again and switch over to my bow. so that I can shoot primarily instead of trying to hit people with the short sword. I already back up to 14 arrows just by doing that, by the way, so I'm good. Now, it's not too bad to switch to a short sword because if you go into your inventory by pushing I and then push B to select your short sword, you can see that its base accuracy, which it lists right here under the kind of descriptive text, is +4. And its base damage is 6, which is pretty low, and its base attack delay is 1.1, which is very, very fast. So it's a fast weapon for someone who is not skilled with the weapon, and it hits very well. And all you're needing to do against enemies on Dungeon 1 is just do a small amount of damage to kill most of them. And so that short sword was totally fine for that. I'm never going to raise my short blade skill with this Barachi unless something extraordinary happens, but for now I'm just going to keep on bows, and I'm going to take a couple shots at this kobold. Now this kobold is really hard to hit. He's a small guy, he's very elusive, but again, this is Dungeon 1. You're just looking for like one hit. Hobgoblins are one of the exceptions to that rule, which is that they have a good amount of hit points and that they do a decent amount of damage with that club that they usually have. So not every enemy is one hit. Dart Slug is also actually pretty robust, but he's sleeping, so we're going to take a shot at him, and you see we do about 80% of his health right there. Now he can fire back with his own Dart Slug, or his dart, you know, because he's a Dart Slug, but we'll kill him before he even gets that happening. I'm just going around collecting scrolls and potions, and if you've watched any of my other tutorial videos, you will understand this philosophy of mine with the game, which by no means is the only way to play the game, and other people might be totally different, and that's cool. But my philosophy is to not to not read scrolls until I clear the dungeon level that I'm on entirely, unless it's a I'm going to die situation, and the only prayer that I have is to read this scroll and hope that it's impactful. Alright. Again, I'm going to ignore the bat that's on me. I accidentally took a shot at it. I'm just going to kill this kobold with a sling. He's actually kind of scary because he's got his sling, but not super scary. The Dart Slug can do more damage, I believe. Luckily, the kobold was running interference and blocking the Dart Slug from hitting us. We have 2 arrows left, and that actually means something. So I'm going to actually step up and step away. And then I'm going to switch to my short sword and try and finish off this bat if I can. But remember, he's super elusive. The Dart Slug did try to take a shot at us, but we have a 12 evasion, so we're kind of reasonable at that, at dodging that. Now, I was kind of walking up here to hit the bat, but more importantly to look for some arrows, and it looks like all of my arrows are below me, so I'm going to jump, and I'm going to try to jump as far as I can this way. And I didn't jump very far, but I jumped enough so that I can just walk around this corner and get the Dart Slug out of line of sight so he can no longer hit me. I will try to kill this bat. Boof. Alright, I'm just going to kill the Dart Slug with this short sword. It's a little bit dicey, but it's enough damage. We got taken down to 8. This is fine. And it's time to raise our attributes. We're going to be raising strength most of the time until we want to cast more spells, but to be honest, 11 intelligence is pretty decent. Barachi have just very, very balanced stats, and that's great for making like a hybrid type character. This bat is hitting us, but not really doing that much damage. There we go. Okay. And so with that display there, it could have gone really badly. I could have gotten blasted a few times and got killed by that Dart Slug. And it's entirely possible that your Barachi will get into a bad situation and die early on because you're a little bit squishy, but it shouldn't be too hard to secure a foothold in the game. One of the things, though, that you need to be careful of, and you can see the consequence of it there with that, you know, we got taken down to the yellow there in our health, was running out of arrows. And so I fired a bunch of arrows down here, and I need to get them back before I engage other enemies, if at all possible. I am currently wearing leather armor, and that's what this armor is on the ground, so not very exciting. Okay. Yeah, you can get into spots like this, where the kobold, or the hobgoblin, I'm sorry, is right on me. And I need to get away. But luckily, I'm a frog. So I'm going to blink this way, or hop this way. And this time we hopped really far. And you can see the power of the leap, because I can shoot for as far as I can see. And so we're just trying to take these guys down, and we did. A couple of key hits. We got him. Here comes a rat. There's an argument to be made for just switching to a short sword on something like a rat and just pushing S, letting it come to us, and then eventually we'll kill it. I'm going to switch back to my bow and start trying to gather up all of my arrows. I'm back up to 16 arrows. This gecko we can kill with a shot if we can hit. You can see sometimes, you know, when you're not trained very well with your bow, some enemies are really, really, really hard to hit. But that's okay. It's a goblin. He's here. We got him. It's another goblin. We got him. All right. So now we're done with Dungeon 1. And we have 36 arrows now. We must have found another full stack of arrows somewhere. Let me look at this. I'm pushing Control P to open up the text log, and one of the things I love about this game, yeah, look at this, we gained 20 right here. In terms of its UI and ease, is that this text log that you can bring up by pushing Control P and displays its most recent lines in the lower left of the screen, you can use the mouse and it actually goes all the way to when you started your run. Not the very beginning of the game, but the very beginning of the time when you're playing online that you booted it up. So for this session, when I booted it up, it remembers every single thing that has happened. So you can look back and get information about when things were happening, and when you got items, when you got hit, and it's just really, really useful. Now, we're done with Dungeon 1. We're still just training bows, and we're going to keep on with that. I'm pushing the R button to bring up the scrolls that I have, and I have 2. I have a stack of un-ID'd scrolls that has 2 in it, and another scroll. I'm going to read the one that's 2, and it's Identify. Generally, Identify is the most plentiful scroll that you will get, up there with like Teleport. And so if you have a stack with more than 1 early in the game and you haven't found Identify yet, read that first to see if it's Identify, and it is. Once you identify a scroll, it's identified for you for the rest of the game. All right. So here's my philosophy with scrolls and potions. I read scrolls that are unidentified once I've explored the level of the dungeon. I do that because there's many scrolls that have negative effects. Scroll of Noise, Torment, Vulnerability, things that you don't want necessarily. You can sometimes exploit those effects, but for early in the game, you don't want them. You don't want to be tormented for half of your health out of nowhere. So read the scrolls to identify them, but when there's no enemies left on a level, because you could even get a good scroll like Teleport, and then you are teleported, but you didn't really want to, and you go to an area of the floor that you haven't explored yet, and there's a bunch of enemies around, and you don't have a clean escape route, and you end up dying. So reading when the dungeon is explored mitigates that. I never like to blind drink potions unless it's a complete emergency, or unless I've identified so many potions and I can statistically analyze the chances that it's the potion I'm looking for and then take a calculated risk, but even then, not too often. So I like to use my identify charges on my potions. And you want to focus on the potion stacks that you have that have the most potions in them, because Potion of Curing is one of the most plentiful potions that you will find. And so the chances are that if you have a stack with more than one, that it is curing. It very well might not be, but it's more likely than not being the case. So I'm going to identify these 2 black potions by pushing H. And they're actually 2 potions of invisibility, which are extremely useful escape potions if we need to just vanish, like, Bilbo Baggins and hide or whatever for a moment. Now I'm going to read my other scroll here that I don't know what it is, J, and it's Enchant Weapon. Wow, that's extremely lucky. So we got an enchant weapon scroll, and of course we're going to enchant our short bow. Now our short bow is +2, which means +2 to hit, +2 damage. Beautiful. I'm going to read my other identify scroll and identify another potion at random. I'll just go to top, and the ruby potion is a potion of stabbing, which is not very good, but actually in the early game, because we have a short blade and we have 1 pip of stealth, maybe we can make use of that, but most of the time it's garbage. But the good thing is, now every potion of stabbing in the game is identified for us, and we're ready to go to Dungeon 2. So everyone, I hope you found this first episode of Let's Learn, or a beginner guide for a ranger-type character in Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. I hope you found this useful. I hope you are seeing the potential of the Barachi Hunter, what it brings to the table, how cool the leap is, and yet the drawbacks of being slow, how important your ammunition is. You saw us, get into a little bit of a dicey spot because we ran out of arrows, and what to do with skills, potions, and scrolls with this build so far. One last thing I'd like to do, actually, is just search the floor and type in armor. I'm going to type in armor. Remember to spell armor with a U. And what this will do is it'll search the game for every piece of armor that you've seen that you can equip with your character. And I like to do this just to make sure there isn't a better set of armor that I missed. Because auto pickup does not pick up weapons, armor, shields, gloves, stuff like that. And so it can ignore those, and if you're just auto-exploring, you might walk by that and not notice it. So searching for things in the holes that you have on your character screen by pushing Shift 5, and seeing like, oh, I don't have a helmet or a cloak or gloves or boots, amulets or rings. You can search for those types of items just to see if you missed any. Alright, so no new armor, but we're still good. I will check you guys in the next episode of the Beginner Guide to a Ranger in Dungeon Crawl here in 2020 on version 0.25 next time. Please post any questions that you have in the comments below. I read all the comments, and I'd love to help you in any way that I can. Or you can go to my Discord server and message me there, or ask other people in the Discord server who are good at Dungeon Crawl, or for any help. All right, guys. Take care.